I'm working on writing the first draft of a romance novel. I've been working on this draft for basically the entirety of 2024, on and off, and my goal is to finish this first draft, getting it as close to 90,000 words as possible before the end of the year. Last week I did not get any creative writing done. It was the election last week that did not feel mentally or emotionally good. So I did not have creative capacity, especially not romance writing capacity last week. Usually when I sit down for a day of writing, I set a goal for my day, usually a target word count that I want to reach. Sometimes at the start of the week, I'll even set a week-long writing goal. This week, my week-long goal is just to sit down and write every day. Today I've already sat down and written, and so I'm already pleased with myself for today. I started my morning not by writing my draft, but by writing about my draft, kind of reflecting on what I'm writing. I'm kind of superstitious about talking about the details of my writing projects while I'm still working on them, so I don't want to talk in detail in this video about what this plot is that I'm working on, but it is generally kind of an rivals to lovers, enemies to lovers. I read a lot of romance and I think a lot about what makes romance novels so popular and what makes specific tropes so compelling to people, and enemies to lovers is so popular. I think that part of that is definitely just because with enemies to lovers, there's a suggestion of a certain amount of passion. It's that thin line between love and hate idea. It's sparks flying, it's fun to read. But I think that with really good enemies to lovers, there's even something deeper than that that really strikes a chord with people. And I think that that is the idea that somebody could see the worst parts of you first and love you because of that, rather than the way that relationships maybe more conventionally develop, which is that you get to know each other, you get to know the kind of versions of yourselves that you're projecting out, you get to know the flirty, fun versions, and then over time, trust and love develop. And so when you see the flaws in each other and you see maybe the meaner, angrier, less impressive sides to each other, you accept those parts because you already love the person as a whole. But with enemies to lovers, the love and the trust comes after you've seen the worst parts of each other, the angry, mean, flawed sides of each other. And I think that there's something really compelling about the idea of two people understanding those parts of each other first, and then realizing all of the good parts on top of that and kind of developing love for each other in that way. At least that's, I think, what's at the heart of an enemies to lovers that is done very well. Obviously, I'm trying to do it well. I think that enemies to lovers can be done very, very badly. Like, it's easier to do enemies to lovers badly than it is to do friends to lovers badly, for example. Because with an enemies to lovers, you have to think about the reason for the enmity, and it can be done quite badly if that reason is either too small or too big. For example, I once read the first 50 pages and then stopped reading of a book that was described as enemies to lovers, and the entire basis of the enmity was that these two people were co-workers, and one time she didn't hold the elevator doors for him and let it close in his face, and it had been raining and he was wet and he had to wait longer then for an elevator, and then they hated each other for 2 years, except he secretly didn't hate her at all. He was in love with her, and that was very stupid, and I stopped reading that book for other reasons as well, but partly because I was like, this is not a convincing reason why two people would have a sense of enmity for each other. So sometimes the enemies to lovers doesn't work because the reason for enmity is too small. Other times it doesn't work for me because the reason is too big. I have read descriptions for plenty of books described as enemies to lovers romance, where the reason for the enmity is racism, is one of them is a racist white person and the other one isn't racist and isn't white. And so then they have to overcome the fact that one of them is oppressing the other. That, I think, is not a good enemies to lovers setup. I think that that reason for enmity is too substantial to be overcome and lead to a loving relationship. Plenty of people do read those books. Those aren't for me to read, though, and definitely not for me to write. No thank you to that. Anyway, these were some of the things that I was kind of reflecting on this morning, thinking about my writing project and my intentions with it and what things I can shift or add into my draft to bring it more to where I want it to be. I'm trying to make my creative writing practice more reflective and relaxed. So I did my morning reflective writing on the creative writing project as a whole. I did 2 different 30-minute writing blocks. I started a nice vegetable broth simmering on the stove that I am going to very greatly enjoy. It's got a lot of ginger and turmeric and black pepper in it. It's going to be good for me. I'm going to be able to go out there and give it a poke and a taste every now and then and break up my writing day with just kind of standing up, stretching, thinking about what I'm writing and how it's feeling, and I'll see where that carries me. And if my day ends up including some time on the couch watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, that's definitely for research, because nobody has ever done enemies to lovers like the Spike and Buffy relationship. So it's for research, it's for work, it's important, it's part of my process.